you might totally be doing it, and I might just be nodding my head and totally not understand what you're saying. But for the majority of it, it's got to be people like us who just talk in your everyday language. If you need to explain something, that's all you have to do. You don't have to impress us with that. There's admissions reps, there's counselors, there's faculty, there's other staff. They're all reading PYQ. So there's a lot of different people that are reading it. Don't make us question who the writer is. The other thing to do is, that kind of gives us a sense like, okay, is someone else writing your PYQ? Especially if you're talking in a voice and language in a way that sounds older than who you are. If you're answering your description of your extracurricular activities and you're just saying some really kind of regular language, and all of a sudden you switch tones into this really, huge, Shakespearean PYQ, I'm going to even question, okay, what did you actually write these, or did you have that much time to kind of think of it? So we can actually tell in the context of even the writing from the way you describe your extracurricular activities and awards to the PYQs, what's going on. And so that's just something for you to think about, is to remember that you want to have kind of that consistent voice throughout the PYQs. So number 7 here, blank. And this is actually one I see a lot. I've actually seen the most of probably this past year, is where students just leave it blank, or they write one sentence and say, here's my answer, here you go. And that's really it. And that's just to me, it's such a wasted opportunity, because every part of the application is designed for you to tell us something about yourself. And so the way we kind of look at it is that everything in your application is value added. So the more information you give us, the more we have evidence to say, oh yeah, you can be a successful student at UC. And so the idea is to not miss that opportunity. Actually put down a PYQ. I've seen so many times where it's literally just one sentence and everyone just assumes, okay, my grades or my other things are going to get me in. And that's not the case. And so the worst thing you can do is just leave it blank. I really, really can't emphasize how much that these PYQs really give context. And there's other times where it completely helps the student, because I see that maybe the student missed out an area to talk about, like maybe they didn't mention they were on ASB or part of a sports teams, but all of a sudden in the PYQs, they mentioned, okay, and from 9th to 12th grade, I was captain of the varsity basketball team, and I was student government, vice president or something like that. Well, because the application is holistic and it's comprehensive, we can actually pull in information from that PYQ to say, oh, you were in these activities. We can actually apply that. So even if you left something else, blank somewhere else, but we learned that, oh, you were actually involved in some activities earlier on, that will totally benefit you. And we've done that where we're able to say, okay, the PYQ actually helped the student because they introduced information that we didn't know anywhere else in the application, and they took advantage of that. So not to say that you should save everything for the PYQ, but again, every part of the application is designed to give you an opportunity to share about yourself. So take advantage of that opportunity. Get right to using this section to introduce some new information that we didn't know about you before. The worst thing you can do is leave it blank. And finally, the last one that I have about just common mistakes as we kind of slowly wrap up, and we'll have some time for questions, is number 8 is talk about how you always wanted to go to UC Berkeley to become a Mighty Bear. Like, I totally get it. My dad went to Berkeley. So, that's one of the reasons why I had to apply to Berkeley. But the idea is that if you're applying to multiple campuses, everyone's going to see that. So when I read it, or Caesar reads it and say, oh, all you want to do is become a Berkeley or Cal Bear, and none of, you're applying to us, kind of makes me kind of second guess, what are you, why are you even, applying to us? Then do you really want to come here if we, let you, not to say that we won't let you in because, you say you really want to be a bear or something like that. But remember that it's one application and it's one set of PYQs. So write in a way that's not specific to a specific campus. You're not going to be able to separate that out. So if you really want to tell that specific campus something, you're going to have to do it in a different manner because you're not going to be able to do it through the application. The application is one application. You're applying to the University of California. And so just remember that each of the campuses you check off gets a copy of that same exact application, the exact same PYQ. So if you said Cal Berkeley and you applied to Riverside and Irvine, both Caesar and I are reading that and saying, did you really understand the application? So again, we independently evaluate your application, but we all see the same PYQs. And so just remember that as you're writing these things, you're not writing to one campus. You're not writing to your dream school. Like, keep your dream school separate. I really want to hope that, yes, it's always good to have goals and have a really great dream school, but I think there's a lot of really, really good universities that are good fits, and they could become dream campuses because of what they offer. And so Don't put all your eggs in one basket and say, okay, this has got to be my dream school, and I'm only going to apply to that one school like that and put everything in there. So when you're applying to multiple schools, a lot of them could be really good fits. And if you do get admitted to one of them, I highly encourage you to do your research, check it out, kind of see what they have to offer, because you might find out that it's actually a better fit for you than what you originally thought of that. So with that being said, that was our kind of quick summary in terms of common mistakes. I know we're going to want to leave plenty of time for questions at the end, so I'll go ahead and let Caesar kind of wrap us up here.
Definitely. And this is just the things to leave you all with, top things to remember when writing your PIQ. So, talk about yourself. I think we've kind of said that, over and over again within this presentation. We want to hear about you, not about anyone else. The additional comments is not PIQ number 5. I can't tell you how many times I've seen a PIQ written in the additional comments. So that space is reserved for information that doesn't fit anywhere else on the application, right? So some examples of that can be an unusual personal or family circumstance, right? Anything that perhaps it wasn't, for whatever reason, it wasn't able to be mentioned anywhere else. You would use the additional comments tab to do that. We don't want to see 5th PIQ response in that section, and we won't be looking at that, okay? Remember to answer the question. Brian mentioned it earlier, right? Some of these are multifaceted, and they ask oftentimes, 2 questions, right? Rarely is just the answer that first part of it. Answer all parts of the question, right? One of the things I always tell students is, read the PIQ as until you understand what it's asking, write it, and then read the PIQ again, just to make sure that you hit on every point. Write in a way that's easy to understand. Imagine that you are talking to an admissions counselor in person. So how would you respond? I think Brian, kind of talked about this earlier, right? Talk to us as the way that you would if we were talking in person, right? And then use your own words, don't copy or plagiarize, we'll check for that, right? And like Brian already touched upon a little bit earlier as well, like we're able to tell because of the way that you may have answered responses in the activities and words, right? It's going to be a difference from, when you answer on the PIQs. We can tell, the differences in writing. So, you're at liberty to contact us at our phone number, email as well, and then commonly asked questions and answers. So I encourage you all, our websites are extremely helpful. There are actually a lot of resources for PIQs and general admissions questions on our website. So I know you all are tech savvy. You can Google admissions University of California, and you'll be able to find, a resource or two for you all to utilize when you are starting to write these PIQs or when you're all actually applying for our universities. But with that being said, I do believe that is make time for any questions that you all might have. We just threw a lot of information at you all. So please do feel free to use that Q&A feature to ask any lingering questions, and hopefully Brian or myself can assist with those questions.
Awesome, gentlemen. Fantastic for you. And I know you guys are ready for it. So first, thank you for reminding everyone, this is a separate application. A lot of times seniors will go, wait, it's not on Common App. Where's my UC? So it is a separate application that the UCs all use. But on that UC application, you guys do ask them to describe all their activities. So can they talk more on the PIQs about that activity? And how do you view the description of the activities versus the PIQs in the admissions process?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's really easy. So absolutely, yes, you can use the activities and expound upon that in the PIQ. So like I said before, the activities section is really the outcome. So you could say, okay, I was involved in a sport, or I was involved in theater, or I was involved in volunteer, but we don't understand the process of how you got to that point. So the idea is that the PIQ is used to expand upon the process that you got there. Maybe you were involved for 4 years, and by your senior year, you were the president of the club or organization. How did you get to that point? Or if you were a leader and you were involved in that organization, what were the challenges you faced? How did you grow as a leader? What were some experiences you got from those types of things? So the idea is that when you're describing the activity itself, tell us what that exactly is, because we come from so many different backgrounds. We don't know every single sport, activity, involvement, club, or organization. And it gets worse when it's at high school because there's so many abbreviations. So your CSF could mean something else versus AP, I always like to joke, AP in high school is great because it's an advanced placement. AP when you get to college is academic probation, and you don't want to be on AP when you're in college. So very, very different in terms of abbreviation. So use the explanation about the activities section to talk about what that is. If it's an abbreviation of an organization, tell us what it is. If it's an award, tell us, how many people are considered for this award. Is this a national award, a local award, a city award? So describe the actual item that it is in the activities or extracurriculars or the awards. Like, tell us what's going on. But then the PIQ is to answer, what is your involvement in that? What is your place in that area? One of the easiest ones I've seen is that a student said, okay, I was involved in the basketball team. In the description, they actually said, basketball is a game that's 5-on-5 with 5 players on one team, 5 players on a team, and there's one basket and you try to get it into a hoop. Like, that's what they used it. And that's totally fine. Like, that explained to me if someone didn't know what basketball was, you understood basketball. Then the PIQ is used to talk about, okay, if I was captain of the basketball team, how did I get to that spot? Are you talking about the number of NBA, J leagues you've been in? Are you talking about how many hours of practice did you as a captain organize your own summer workouts? Did you have adversity? Maybe you didn't have enough players, or you were always up against better competition, and how did you come together as a league? So that's the stuff where you're going to insert yourself in the narrative about what you are in basketball. That's what the PIQ is supposed to be. So, Cesar, anything else to add to that?
I think you answered it very solidly, Brian.
As always, both of you will do that. And now my next question is that UCs are test-free. So no SAT, ACT, you can't even see it. But what if I have a score I want to brag about and I write about in my PIQ? Can they? Should they? What should they do?
Don't do it. just don't include it. We're not going to take it into consideration. We're not going to look at it. We're not going to give you brownie points for it. So don't include it. Yeah, we're not going to be looking at SAT or ACT scores for admissions purposes. So some students sometimes report tests that they may have been able to take for whatever reason. I don't know how. I know for the last 2 years it's been on a lockdown, but some students, I've seen students report test scores. They're self-reported test scores, but they're not going to be taken into consideration when it comes to admissions. Don't give it to us.
And then the other question that I have, I know you guys, it's your job and you're going to read it, but there's always that question. How do you have time to read 100,000 applications with on top of 20 activities, with on top of 4 PIQs? How do you guys do it?
We just get it done. And I'm sorry to say. So each campus, like I said, reviews independently, and all of our campuses hire a lot of readers to read applications. So we have a lot to distribute. And, again, like I said, this is our job. And so we read during our holiday breaks, most often during Christmas and New Year's. I've actually been reading applications like that. So during that filing period, once you get your application into us, it allows us to basically start reading once everything kind of gets processed. So we try to get to it as fast as we can. And we have there's trainings, we have to go through a lot of kind of norming files and practices in order to actually understand the system of how we're reading. So when I read, and I will tell you this right now, I'm always, in my mind, data mining. And so I'm always keeping a track of, okay, is this information that I'm reading going to add to your application? Is it something new that I'm learning? And so as I'm going down through each of the parts of the application, and it's actually designed in a really logical way, so we can kind of see things really easily on screens. Thankfully for technology, it's great because I can scroll now on my computer or laptop or iPad, versus in the past, it was actually all paper. And it was even worse. I don't even want to say when we had to actually look at handwritten stuff, because that was going to be impossible. But so thank goodness everything's typed and everything's electronic now, where I can actually just scroll. And it's in a very easy way where then I can just kind of read through and be able to see, okay, I'm looking for information. Again, we're trained to actually look for information about you. And so if you're wasting time, like we've said before, about repeating yourself or just giving us information or leaving it blank, which is super easy because obviously I just scroll past it, right? So the more information you give us, the more it'll help you for us to get a good picture of you on the application. So we definitely make the time to do it. We get it all done in the amount of time. I know it sounds like it's a lot of work, but this is what our job is, and we're trained to do it. I think what helps is that the more you understand what we're looking for, it'll be easier to fit in. So you're not trying to guess of what we're looking for. So I think these PIQ workshops are helpful because it allows you to give from our point of view, some insight of what we're looking for so that it actually speeds up the process. Because again, if we see quotes from other people like Albert Einstein or Gandhi or something like that, it's like, great, I can really read that fast because I've seen that quote a billion times.